Congratulations on choosing the Dayco Replacement Tensioner 89233, which features Dayco's patented flat spring technology for a more consistent range of torque. This tensioner has been designed and manufactured by Dayco to meet, and in many cases exceed, the performance requirements of the OEM tensioners on the applications shown. Here are a few installation tips for this tensioner. Our featured vehicle is a 1996 Mercury Sable with a 3.0-liter transverse engine. Typical in virtually all front-wheel drive vehicles, the transverse engine puts the accessory drive near the left fender, adding a little more challenge to the replacement process. While it's possible to remove the coolant reservoir, the additional work that's needed outweighs the benefit, so we're going to leave the coolant reservoir in place. One step that is going to make the replacement easier is to remove the idler pulley before the tensioner. To facilitate this, we have to relieve tension from the belt. First, put a 15mm socket on the tensioner pulley bolt. On this tensioner design, there is no room for an arm with a square hole, which is typical in other designs. Push the tool down to relieve tension on the belt. Remove the belt from the idler pulley first, and then from the tensioner. Relieve the tension on the tool and remove it from the tensioner. Next, put an 18mm socket or wrench onto the idler pulley bolt. Break the idler bolt loose, then continue to unscrew it by hand. When the bolt is free, remove the idler pulley. With the idler pulley gone, there is a good visual and mechanical path for the next step: remove the tensioner. For this process, we recommend a breaker bar with a T50 internal star bit. Insert the star bit into the tensioner bolt and break it loose. Now switch to a ratchet, then finish unscrewing the bolt by hand. When the bolt is free, remove the tensioner. It's easier to remove the bolt from the tensioner before bringing the tensioner out of the engine compartment. Here is the Dayco Replacement Tensioner on the left, featuring patented flat spring technology, and the OEM tensioner on the right with a round spring. Let's do a brief comparison. The back of the Dayco tensioner features a closed case to protect it from the environment. The OEM tensioner, however, has an open back case, which makes it more susceptible to contamination, corrosion from road salt, and dust. The OEM tensioner has a pulley-bearing dust shield that is open around the edge, putting the bearing at risk for contamination and eventual failure. The Dayco tensioner has a shrouded pulley-bearing dust shield that forms an envelope around the bearing for maximum protection and long life. Damping on the OEM tensioner is accomplished with an internal nylon disc located between the round spring and the back plate. Dayco Damping utilizes its unique deflected arm plate design. A spring steel plate is depressed and locked by the pivot tube, so that the plate is pressing against the nylon damping pad. Since the serpentine belt is disengaged from the tensioner, it's a good time to inspect the belt. Here are some things to look for: chunking out or excessive cracking of the ribs, stones, sand, dirt, or other debris that has become embedded in the rib roots, any evidence of pilling of rubber in the rib roots, and finally, cord that is popping out or fraying. Depending on the degree, any of these conditions can be cause for replacement. Before installation of the replacement tensioner, it is strongly recommended that you clean the mounting surface with a light abrasive pad to ensure that no debris is lodged between the surface and the tensioner, which could cause alignment problems and allow the mounting bolt to loosen over time. Please note, the OEM and Dayco replacement bolts differ in design. The OEM bolt has an angled head that fits flush in the hole on the OEM tensioner. This OEM bolt must not be reused for the Dayco tensioner. If used, immediate tensioner failure will result. For Ford and Mercury cars, the Dayco supplied square-headed bolt should be used. For Ford and Mazda pickup trucks, the Dayco supplied shorter bolt with a sleeve should be used. Now we're ready to install the Dayco replacement tensioner. With the new bolt inserted into the tensioner, note the location of the locator pin on the back of the tensioner and its mating hole in the mounting surface. Orient the tensioner for the best pin-to-hole alignment and take the tensioner toward the firewall and under the alternator. Start screwing the bolt by hand until it can support the tensioner. Now, rotate the tensioner until the pin mates with its alignment hole. You'll hear it click. Continue hand tightening the bolt until it's snug, then switch to a 16mm socket to tighten further. Finally, use a torque wrench to tighten to 35 foot-pounds. Now, it's time to start reinstalling the serpentine belt. First, make sure the belt is aligned correctly on all the lower pulleys in the belt routing. It will be difficult to reach these once the idler pulley is installed. When the belt is aligned, reinstall the idler pulley, using the original bolt. As before, begin by screwing in the bolt by hand until snug. Tighten further with an 18mm wrench. Then torque the bolt to 35 foot-pounds with a torque wrench. Now put a 15mm socket on the tensioner pulley bolt. While holding the belt, pull back on the tool to rotate the tensioner. Then route the belt first on the idler pulley and finally around the alternator. Release pressure on the tool and remove it. Then check visually for correct routing around all of the accessories. Next, have an assistant bump the engine while you visually inspect the serpentine belt for proper seating in all the accessories. If satisfactory, run the engine for a few minutes to seat the belt. Dayco is a leading worldwide manufacturer of automotive and heavy-duty replacement tensioners featuring its patented flat spring technology. Dayco designs its own tensioners with a number of superior features that far surpass the competition's. Buying Dayco means you're buying the best.